Shanti, peace, and salam. I'm going to talk today about the. It's more like a commentary on Hinduism, Christianity, and Islam, the three largest religions in the world. So now that I'm in India, which is my country, and most of the people in India are followers of Hinduism, and my family being one of the most prominent Hindu families back in the day, but now we're Christian. So I would like to begin with Hinduism and what what Hinduism is and what Christianity is and what Islam is. So let me begin with Hinduism first. In Hinduism, I feel like the emphasis is on the divine in relation to the cosmic horizon. So let me explain. So in Hinduism, the emphasis is on God or the divine, Brahman, in terms of Advaitism, or Vishnu in terms of Vaishnavism, and Shiva in terms of Saiva Siddhanta, which are basically the predominant religions. Either it's Advaita or Dvaita or Vishishta Advaita in relation to the different theological schools in Hinduism. But then in all these schools, what they share in common, I believe, is the cosmic dimension of the divine. So in Hinduism, when we look at the idea of time, we don't look at time in relation to history like most Christians and maybe even Muslims do at a certain level. But the West and the Jews and Christians mostly look at time as historical time. But in Hinduism, it's more like it's a cosmic epoch. And in the beginning of every epoch, in relation to Vaishnavism, Vishnu makes an appearance as an avatar, because what happens is with every cycle there is a falling away. You begin with the purest cosmos. You begin with your cosmos as the purest, and then you see gradual ways in which it falls away from that purity until it comes to a point where there is the Kalki avatar, which is like the avatar of destruction, destroying the cosmos and then recreating it again. So time is cyclical and cosmic. So in relation to the cosmos, we see humans as just one part of the cosmos. And even when we encounter stories in, say, the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, we only encounter people of cosmic proportions. We encounter people like Arjuna, who is like who is the son of Indra, the rain god, and then we encounter Karna, who is the son of the sun god, and then we encounter people who are born in very mysterious circumstances, to say the least, to show the connection to the heavens, to show the connection to the world of the gods. And then we are also introduced to the world of sacrifice, essential because a sacrifice is a cosmic act. It's not the in fact the human beings derive their identity through by sacrificing to the gods, and even the gods make sacrifices, like, so it's like a sacrificial kind of a cosmology, because it's a kind of a hierarchy where you have gods on top, and then we have humans and animals below. So humans can kind of negotiate with the gods by offering animals in a certain sense. But the major idea of sacrifice is that there is a higher dimension, a cosmic dimension, that in which humans participate. We belong to the cosmos. If we were to read, for example, the hymn to the earth in the Vedas, it shows how the earth is full of treasures and beauty and richness and life and abundance, and humans are participating in that. We are just one among the many creatures in the world. you know we are like the antelope. We are like all the other, in fact, the closest creature to human beings In the Vedic tradition is the antelope, because the antelope was once a prey like humans were. Anyway, so it's like we are just animals who can sacrifice, and we have no real, like agency and significance. So it's like we're born into this cosmic horizon, and then we participate in the cosmic horizon, and then we recede into the cosmic horizon. And later on, in relation to God, we realize that even the cosmic horizon does not really have like absolute significance. So what does that mean? That means that in Hinduism, it is the Brahman. It is Brahman who is the self, who's the Atman, who's the absolute, who's one, where there is no two, there is only Brahman. He is he Brahman. Sorry, he can say he. It is more like Brahman is more like um, let's for argument's say Brahman is God, like but Brahman is not merely God, but Brahman is self-sustaining existence. And Brahman, according to Shankaracharya, is Satchitananda, truth, knowledge, self knowledge, full of self knowledge, and full of sweet, abundant bliss. So, Brahman is the ground of all beings, the reality, the actual reality behind all appearances. And so, even nature, in a certain sense, recedes, and only the Brahman comes to the fore. And union with Brahman is the ultimate kind of goal of Hinduism, either through jnana, bhakti, or karma marga. So there are many margas through which we are united to the Brahman, and there are many gods, and every god has a significance, cosmic significance, and in participating in those gods in many ways, there we can also participate in the self. Well, we perform externally what is true internally in terms of Hinduism. And the other dimension of Hinduism is that, but then we realize the absoluteness of God only in relation to the cosmos. So it's like, so that is a kind of fundamental axiom of Hinduism. And so Hinduism is not, and does not claim to be a historical religion like, you know Christianity, and in a certain sense Islam. And in from that point of view, let's go into delve into Christianity. In Christianity, we see the significance of the human in relation to God. We don't see nature too much. We don't see the cosmos. The cosmos is kind of in the backdrop of humanity. So if you look at art in the Renaissance, and or humanistic art, you see that there's a human person in the center of art, and then in the backdrop you see, you know the whatever this is, that's just like a backdrop. You don't see, like in Buddhist or Hindu paintings, human beings as a part of the landscape. You see human beings dominating, the human person dominating the landscape. So it's like there is an emphasis on the human being, on the human person. So it's like so in Christianity we encounter something we call evil, because if you look at Hinduism, there is no evil, because it's all to do with the cosmic falling away, and it's to do with ignorance. It's to do with ignorance of who you really are. But in Christianity, we see the Bible emphasis on murder, because now time is not cosmic, it's not cyclical, but it's become historical. So it has this unpredictable dimension, and every moment is something new that it's never been and it never will be. And so it's like a new moment every second. And human acts have like huge cosmic significance. So just, like murdering your brother is not just like, okay, it's not just a small act in a big universe, but then it is the act that defines everything. So in and then we begin with the fall of man, and we don't find, even although we encounter Adam and Eve in Islam too, in the Quran, we don't see that Adam and Eve have fallen away. We see that Adam disobeyed God, and then he makes a dua. He prostrates in front of Allah, seeking His mercy, and Allah, who's all merciful and gracious, grants him that mercy. But in the Bible, we see Adam, like, like opposing God, like standing in opposition to God after committing the act of disobedience, or that's another story altogether. But Adam disobeys God, and the idea is that Adam wants to become the absolute. Adam the absolute, instead of God being the absolute. Adam wants to be the absolute, and that is where history begins, with Adam trying to be the absolute, and then striving to be the absolute in Adam and his descendants. And but then God is always been the absolute, and God kind of comes and um, tries to intervene in a certain sense in how man acts in the world. Intervene not in terms of actual manipulating events behind the scenes, but intervene in terms of trying to kind of change and turn the hearts of man in a certain sense. And we encounter, like, so in the biblical stories we encounter historical characters, we encounter tyrants like the Pharaoh, we encounter people like Abraham, who was actually might have been, most probably been, a historical person. And then we encounter prophets like Moses, and like many other prophets. And then we encounter prostitutes, and even kings to, at the same time. And every genealogy, there is no cosmic genealogy like we encounter in the Mahabharata, where we find out that Karna or Arjuna are actually descendants of gods. But then we see people in as descendants of Adam, the first historical man. And and then we see how, in a certain sense, that if God were to appear, God appears in human history, in the midst of human history, as a human being, of course. And God is also, in a certain sense, exposed to the sinfulness and the evil of man. And God allows himself as the absolute, as peace itself, as love itself. God allows himself to be crucified and is resurrected, and you know is revealed to be God himself, the self knowledge of God, the Word of God, Son of God, is Christ comes into the world. And in participation with Christ, you see, when you look at Christian saints, they are mostly represented as deified, and they have these beards and everything, but they also have this kind of light, created light that flows through their bodies. So the understanding is that God became man so that man might become God in participation in God. So when man throws his sinfulness away, when man kind of fights his evil, and man free in freedom participates in Christ, and thereby man, in a certain sense, becomes divine. And there's also this understanding that after the fall of man, after man wanted to become an absolute center, nature fell from nature itself became estranged from human beings. So, in a certain sense, like, nature kind of craves for the estranged to become one with human beings again. So, the kind of, if you look at, if using the metaphor of the theater, now in Hinduism, the light falls, spotlights on the cosmos, and human beings in relation to the cosmos, and God in relation to the cosmos. In Christianity, the spotlight falls on human beings in relation to the cosmos, and human beings in relation to God. And now we come to Islam. In Islam, the spotlight falls on God in relation to the cosmos, and in relation to human beings. So how does the cosmos and the human being participate in God in Islam? So, recollecting the story of Adam in Islam, Adam makes a prostration, and there is no concept of sin, there is no concept of evil. is only falling away from the commandments of Allah. So Allah is the God we encounter in as Brahman in Hinduism, and as God in Christianity and Judaism, and Allah is of course God in Islam. And then there is this whole Quranic verse that says that God, he is neither begotten nor does he beget. So in Christianity we see this explicit reference to Jesus as the only begotten Son of God. So what does it mean for God to not beget and not to be begotten? Because that is the realm of God's inner workings. So that dimension of God is kind of not revealed to human beings. So God is withdrawing that revelation in that sense, as you don't need to have that revelation of God's inner life. Satchitananda, we don't, like, of course, God is everything, but the focus is not on knowing about those different dimensions of God, but then prostrating yourself in front of God. It begins with you prostrating because God is the absolute. And even the sun prostrates. There's a hadith which says the sun every day takes permission from Allah, prostrates in front of Allah, and gets permission to rise again. So every creature, knows that it has no real existence, only in relation to Allah who sustains everything, who's merciful. Everything that is life, from breath to intelligence to everything, to children, to family, to nature, to abundance around us, is a mercy from Allah. Everything is a mercy from Allah. So it's like the only thing that is expected of human beings is to do prayers, and mercifully, God grants humans to do prayers only 5 times a day. In fact, in reality, we must be praying all the time, we must be prostrating all the time. But in mercy, God says it's enough to prostrate only 5 times a day. And next, it's like, so it's all about, we don't need to know the inner workings of Allah. That's too great for us. Why do we have to know the divine life? And we're participating in Christianity. It's like we're going to be heirs of the divine nature. In Hinduism, it's like Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi. Uh, I am the absolute, without my ego, without my appearance. As appearance, I am one with the self, one with Brahman, and so is everything. But in Islam, it's like, no, we are not. We are just contingent beings, and God just keeps multiplying mercies according to His own will. The mercy will be granted. All we have to do is to do our prayers, to establish charity, and then to follow the laws of Allah, and and then Allah will multiply mercies upon us. Failure to do so would result in us kind of getting what we are, like plunging into our own existence, which is hellfire in Islam. So it's like, once you make the dua, once you make the prostration, once you do establish prayers and establish charity and establish pilgrimage and do the fasting and do everything, then you are following the will, you're following the will of Allah. And it is up to Allah to grant mercies unto you, and Allah will, being merciful and gracious, Allah will grant mercies to you. So we have like three different faiths in a certain sense, and I think it's up to every individual to find in their own faith, or in a faith that they prefer, a kind of purity and something that reflects something of themselves there. But then in the end, all paths are good paths. All paths are lead to God. All paths lead to uh, the divine. And it's like, I don't think there's any reason to put one religion in in a position to another, but we see are different ways of understanding the divine and of participating in the divine. So it's like, if you really have this kind of the emphasis, if the emphasis is on God, and if you feel like, if you have a sense of your like contingency, so to say, then Islam is a great path, because the emphasis is not on you at all. The emphasis is on God. If you think that human beings have responsibility, if you feel like human beings have something to do in this world in terms of various actions, and if you think that there is something called absolute evil and absolute love, two sides, and human beings have the free will to choose, then I think Christianity is a great path for you. And if you believe in the beauty of nature, if you believe in the dynamism of everything around in terms of non human creatures, I hear the voice of different birds, I hear the cock, I hear a crow, I hear the sparrow, and then there are trees behind me. There are mostly banana trees and coconut trees behind me, and there is this kind of beauty and dynamism in nature that is very enthralling. And when if your soul is inclined to nature and loving nature, then Hinduism is a beautiful path. So every path has its own kind of beauty and has its own kind of teaching and its own set of rules, and for you to follow. So I hope that this video was informative from a certain perspective. And if you want more videos like this, do let me know. So thank you very much, and Shanti, peace, and salam to everybody again. Thank you.